Welcome in, everyone, to the NAIAFBALL live show, the final regular season live show of the year, the Watchalong show, the one that, Matt, I know we are so ready for all year long. It is finally here. Sound off in the comments. We want to have the comments going full tilt. Matt, how you doing tonight? You ready for see who it's going to be?
I'm ready. I'm ready for some playoffs. I'm ready, in the wise words of Jim Mora.
Playoffs.
Playoffs.
But
best time of the year, though.
We gotta thank our sponsors first off. That's why we're going about 15 minutes early. We're just gonna chat about it, and we've got our projections here. We can talk about that we did last night with our patrons and folks that are in our Discord. Had a little powwow and came up with a projection last night. Had our own little selection committee meeting, if you would say that. But thanks first to the Urban Edge Network and what they do for us and what they allow us to get access to. Fantastic. And, Matt, the greatest thing is, once it's playoff time, all the games will be free on Urban Edge. That is huge there. Tyler Hagan saying, go Reinhardt, rooting for Taylor Jackson. Reinhardt has their ticket punch, so no drama tonight except for seeing where you're seated. Thanks.
Convincing win, too.
It was. I was very, very happy. Look, I picked U-Pike before the season began, but I also 100% was happy to see a clear-cut winner there. Adam Ferguson saying, what's up, Cory, my guy? I love to see Ferguson in here. Thanks also to Connor Darnell, who will make us look good throughout the night as we get this show on the road and as we look forward to everything here. So, let's talk through. It's fine. No E. I'll take it either way. Let's take a look at what we came up with last night. I've changed a little bit of it from where we had it last night, notably because we were operating with an assumption that Ottawa of Arizona was going to win the game, and boy, Heidi, Matt, getting beat by 35 at home, that's problematic for your playoff chances, even if you're a one-loss team.
Yeah, and just by what point differential? It is Texas Wesleyan's
point differential
bid.
Now,
that is
what makes me, I think, madder than anything is the fact that Louisiana Christian had it on the Ottawa 1 and ran out of time on the clock. If they would have scored a touchdown, it would have been Louisiana Christian with the auto bid, which is not something that I had on my 2025 bingo card.
Yeah, imagine preparing to go into that game knowing not only do you have to beat a top 15 team, you have to
beat them by 6 touchdowns.
Top 15 team. And I mean, they did, which is the craziest part.
To be fair, though,
you executed.
I don't know that if you're LC's head coach, that the possibility of you taking the conference outright was actually on your mind at all, because it was so far out there that. But you got to know, you got to go into that game knowing. So Grandview, Kaiser, Montana Tech, Friends. I think those are pretty set as your top 4. I don't think there's any question who your top 4 are. Benedictine Marion, College of Idaho, Lindsey Wilson. Seems pretty good to us. Benedictine Marion are right there kind of together as those one-loss teams, although Marion's came at the hands of Indianapolis, and they've been NAIA perfect. College of Idaho, the one loss to Montana Tech. Lindsey Wilson with a loss to Campbellsville. Campbellsville tripping up yesterday, which honestly, Matt, in our projections, cost them an auto bid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it actually bumps Georgetown pretty much in from the bubble here. So.
Yep. So, and we'll get to that in a second. Morningside Dordt together, that's an overtime game. I don't see how at this point of the season you can put them any more than a spot apart. Indiana Wesleyan, and we think Carroll on the 12 seed just due to the fact that all two of their losses, that's Montana Tech, College of Idaho, and they were good games both. Now, what we're projecting for the matchups, again, so these matchups take into consideration the NAIA's 800-mile rule to limit flights. And so we are projecting Campbellsville to play host to McPherson. William Penn to play host to Texas Wesleyan. Obviously, that one got rejiggered last night. I think it was William Penn, Georgetown, and we had Ottawa of Arizona getting the auto bid. We've changed a couple times here. Southeastern Reinhardt, we think we are certain about that one. Some of these are guesses. Some of these we feel really, really good about. Southeastern and Reinhardt here, because of the distance and because of the seating, we feel really good about those. And then Evangel versus Georgetown. We like Georgetown over, say, St. Francis, especially on that head-to-head, because both of those teams have a common opponent in Campbellsville. Campbellsville beats St. Francis. Campbellsville loses to Georgetown. And we think that that's going to be the tiebreaker between those two squads. Georgetown has some other big wins, whereas St. Francis's wins are not quite as enthusiastic. McPherson we really, really like. Whereas, Tex West and Reinhardt, those are auto bid teams. McPherson, we like what they did. That one's the one I have I don't want to say a lot of questions about, but that loss to Kansas Wesleyan makes me really, really nervous. But
there's a lot of other ways they could go too, depending on justification too.
100%. And some of the fun stuff tonight, we have coming in after the selection show, we have Dr. Jesse Godding. Good grief, words are hard. Dr. Jesse Godding, the AD from Nelson University, coming in. He's part of the selection committee, and he'll get to defend his team's selections there. Will be nice, but I'm sure we'll have some questions about why this, why that. Honestly, I'm really interested to ask him about the change with Ottawa of Arizona, because you think about Ottawa going from an auto bid to, in our projection, being completely out of the picture. And asking about Georgetown and how that was considered over St. Francis, if that's the case. With McPherson over a team that's knocking on the door like St. Thomas, who honestly, in my opinion, had a very, yes, they won yesterday, but struggling to pull ahead and barely pulling ahead at all over a 500 Florida Memorial team. Really, that makes me really nervous. And so, that's not the right one. Let's see if the NAIA is in gear yet. I've got their YouTube here. Oh, nope, video's private. I guess they'll unlock it at like 7 p.m. So you'll see me floating back and forth trying to see if they've got it up and ready to go yet. We'll watch it with you. You'll get our live reactions. we've still got like 5 minutes. Yeah, Adam saying not a bad way to end the season for us up in Waxahachie. Honestly, I'm really looking forward to seeing some of my Waxahachie friends, because it's only a trip down the road to Fort Worth, and planning on seeing some of the friends, especially Champion Sports, James from Champion Sports, representing there. Let's see, Valley Boy says, Friends U, let's go Falcons. I think Friends, obviously, Friends got the auto bid, but honestly, they have the number one offense in the nation. It's they should go far, and Friends to me is one of the scariest teams that you could have to face in the playoffs, Matt.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've already stood on my soapbox about why they're number one in my poll. Just extremely efficient, and ending the season with a 69-3 win is absurd, but they've been doing that to pretty much everybody.
That's a nice score right there.
Yeah, very nice.
Brett Crochell says, would love to see a Dort Friends matchup at some point. That would be epic.
That would be wonderful.
Absolutely epic. See, also, Friends versus Cumberland would also be an epic matchup. May the tripliest team win. Friends is built for this. Now, here's the one thing I will say about Friends, and the same goes to some extent for Dort, is that you get to some of these really, really, really elite defenses, like Grandview, like College of Idaho, like Carroll, like Southeastern even. And you could see your forced fumble numbers go up dramatically. That's been the one saving grace, really, for Friends. Most of this year is that they have been able to avoid turning over the football. But, if they keep protecting the football like their life depends on it, then they have a really good chance. Yeah, Adam Ferguson said it. Everyone has a good defense until you get punched in the mouth. That's true. But everyone's got a good run game, too, until the ball gets punched loose. And so that's going to be the thing, and that's what Grandview last year took advantage of. Was the turnovers, and even so, they did barely beat Friends.
Yeah, that's kind of the game where I look at it. It's like, okay, this does translate, right? Like,
right. Let's see if they're going to give it to me early. Swap back over there real quick, just in case they don't. No, it's private. They're going to make us wait till the drop of 7, aren't they? Dadgum. All right. All right, then. Keep your secrets. But no, I'm excited. It's been a good year. It's been a weird year, Matt.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see this playoff, because we've been talking about this for the better part of a year, that we kind of have this group of 20 to 25 teams that we are pretty certain about, and it wasn't, other years you've got like 30 to 35 teams that at any point of the season you're like, yeah, they could do good. No, we've got 20 to 25 teams that we know are playoff-worthy teams. And so I'm hoping this should be fairly straightforward, but it's the NAIA, and someone's always going to get rubbed the wrong way. Here we go.
Couple of spots. All
right. Let's watch it. Rocking here. No, Northwestern would not have made it with a win over Concordia. Northwestern had a terrible season.
so dramatic.
I know, man.
I like it.
All right.
Welcome to the 2025 NAIA Football National Championship Selection Show. Get ready as we set the stage in the battle for the Red Banner. 20 teams have been selected into the championship field and will compete to be the last team remaining and be crowned champions. Action in the 70th annual NAIA Football Championship Series gets underway on November 22nd at 4 sites around the country and will continue each Saturday until 2 teams remain. Those programs will travel to Fort Worth, Texas for the national championship game, which will be played at the Crowley ISD Multipurpose Stadium on December 20th, broadcast free on Urban Edge Network and the NAIA Network. Dreams of reaching the football championship series can be realized in 2 ways. Each
Boy,
conference
this is a
determines
10-minute
who their
video
automatic
over
qualifiers
here.
are.
We've
Teams
gone
can
through
earn their bid by becoming champions of their conference or
the Buck
division.
42
The rest
just
of
in
the teams are
preview.
determined by the NAIA Football Selection Committee,
yeah.
comprised of NAIA head coaches and administrators from around the nation.
Come on, let's get to
Are
the
you
getting.
ready?
Yes.
The announcement of the Football Championship Series
Yes,
team
I am
starts
ready.
now. Before we look at this year's first-round matchups, let's take a look at the top 12 teams who will play their first games in the NAIA Football Championship Series in the second round on November 29th. The number 1 overall seed in the 2025 NAIA Football Championship Series are the Vikings of Grandview.
Water's wet, the
The
sky is
Vikings are the
blue.
champions of the Heart of America Athletic Conference North and look
No
to defend their
surprise there.
2024 national championship. Grandview enters the championship series unbeaten at 10-0, led by their senior quarterback Jackson Waring, a 2025 Campbell
David,
Trophy finalist who's
you
thrown
skipped
for
ahead.
26
You
touchdowns
cheated.
in 2025. Over 10 games in 2025, the Vikings averaged 41 points and 430 yards of total offense. The Seahawks of Kaiser are the number 2 seed
Also,
in
no
this season's
shocker
football
there. They've
championship
been number
series,
2 all
earning
season
an
long.
automatic berth out of the Sun
Yeah.
Conference with a 10-0 record. Kaiser continued an impressive 26-game conference
Total
winning
offense,
streak,
501
dating back till
yards per game. That's
2021, and the 2025 Seahawks
sick.
averaged
It's
more
insane.
than 500 yards
It's
of
so
total offense.
balanced.
Kaiser is in search of its 4th straight NAIA Football Championship game appearance.
That's why it felt
winning
so
the Red
weird
Banner
last year
back in
being at the title game, and it
2023.
was like neutralized for the most part.
Number 3.
The Montana Tech
Yeah.
Ore Diggers are the 3rd seed
that feels
in the
right.
NAIA Football Championship Series, earning their way into the championship series by
Where's
winning the
Henchman in the
East
chat
Frontier
with his
Conference.
roll digs?
One
And
of
how
the
about them
two
diggers from Butte?
11-0 teams in the field, Montana Tech is led by Levi Torgensen, who has had nearly
That'd be
1,900
Torgerson,
all-purpose yards,
my lady.
including nearly 1,100 yards receiving.
We're trying, okay.
Defensively,
We're
Montana
trying.
Tech allows the 4th fewest points per game by opponents. The number 4 overall seed in the 2025
I told you we
had
NAIA
top 4 on
Championship
lockdown.
Series
Told you we
had him on
comes
lockdown.
from the division of the Kansas Collegiate Athletic Conference.
Should be number
51.6
1.5.
passing yards per
University saw
game.
historic production on the ground,
Mwah.
leading the NAIA with one of the best
Beautiful.
rushing averages in college football at 482
Best scoring
yards per game.
average in the
Friends
nation.
led the NAIA in both points per game and points against, outscoring
It's just
opponents
beautiful, man.
58 to
It
11
really
on
is.
Football as
average.
God intended.
Falcons quarterback Cavante Baker leads the NAIA with 26 rushing touchdowns.
All right.
The number 5 seed in the 2025 NAIA Football Championship Series are the Ravens of Benedictine, led by
Also feels
Jackson
right.
Dooley, who became Benedictine's all-time leading
They're
passer earlier
borderline
this season.
elite.
The
Their
Ravens are the
defense
champions
leaves a
of
little
the
bit to be
Heart of
desired
America Athletic
sometimes,
Conference
but
South, entering the
borderline
postseason
elite.
with a record of 10-1. Benedictine averages more than 51 points per game, winning 9 straight going into the postseason, averaging 55 points per game in that stretch. Our next team among the top 12 are the 6-seeded Knights of
That
Marion.
feels right.
The champions out of the MSFA Midwest, Marion has won 10
They had a
in row,
really good
averaging
season.
the 8th most
That
points
one
in
is
NAIA
that U
at
Indy
46
game.
points per game.
Yeah,
Keegan
and
Lavelle
UND's
has
like
21 rushing
top
touchdowns for
25
Marion,
Yeah.
third
D2,
in the
like very good
NAIA,
program.
and earlier
Like,
this
if
season
they
he
hadn't
became
played
the
that
Knights'
game, they would
all-time
definitely be top
single-season
5.
rushing touchdown leader. As a team,
Probably.
Marion averages
Yeah, they probably do
222
get bumped
rushing
ahead of
yards per game.
Benedict in their
Yeah.
case.
The 7th-seeded team in this year's football championship series is Lindsey
Okay,
Wilson, the
okay.
2025
That's a spot up from where I
champions and
had them.
automatic qualifier out of the Mid-South Conference.
Daily
The Blue
Junior
Raiders are 9-1
spoilers, my
and led by
guy.
Devontae Saunders, who
Spoilers.
leads the NAIA at almost 147 rushing yards per game. Saunders fronts the ground game that has averaged nearly 224 yards per game in 2025.
That's a really good team.
As the Blue
That's a
Raiders have won
excellent,
3 in a row,
excellent
averaging
team.
46 points per game in that stretch and 43.6 for the season. The College of Idaho is the number 8
Yep,
seed
that
in
feels
the
right.
championship series
feels
with
right.
an overall record of 9-1 and champions of the
You beat
Frontier
Carroll.
West.
Your only
The
loss is
Yotes
to
averaged
Tech.
nearly 400 yards per game of total offense.
They
204
surged
on the
too.
ground,
They
and
started
haven't lost a
outside of
game
the top
in nearly
25,
2
didn't
months,
they?
Yeah, that was
entering
huge.
the FCS
I bet
on a
you are
6-game
hyped.
win streak. The Yotes
I got
threw
some
17
bones to
touchdown
pick with
passes
that,
as a
though.
team, finding 6
I
different
bet you're hyped,
receivers for
Daly
scores
Jr.
in
But again, we'll get to
2025.
that in a minute.
The number 9 seed in the 2025 NAIA Football Championship
Man,
Series
how long
is
has it
the
been since
automatic
Morningside has
qualifier
been
from the Great
that
Plains
low
Athletic
in the
Conference
playoffs?
to the Mustangs of Morningside
gosh.
University. The Mustangs
Would have been
enter with a
lower, too. I don't
prolific
know if they would have
passing
gotten an auto
attack,
bid if they
averaging
hadn't beaten Dort.
340 yards per game,
No, they would have been
leading
in
Or not,
at large.
or not, or
quarterback
yeah,
Uh,
or
Zach
not auto bid,
Savalier,
They would
but
have had a
who threw
first-round
40
game.
touchdown
Yeah,
passes
that's
in the
what I
regular
meant.
Yeah.
season, 17 to Drew Sellen, who led the NAIA in
Sellen's
touchdown
a
catches
beast,
and
though,
yards
dude.
receiving at
Yeah,
123
he's
per game.
insane.
The defenders of Dort are our
Okay,
next top
that
12
feels
team,
right.
checking in
Like I
at the
said,
number 10 seed
you
in the
can't
football
separate them
championship series.
off of
The
Morningside too
defenders
much.
earned an at-large berth from the Great Plains Athletic Conference. At 9-1 on the year, Dort is a high-powered rushing team, averaging
So much fun
247
to
rushing
watch.
yards per game, while the defenders
But
live
their
up to
passing-
the
Not fun to play
name,
against. They
surrendering
can-
just
But their
14
passing
yeah.
yards
points per game
is
to
super
opponents,
good, too, for
fourth
them being a
best in the
smash mouth
NAIA.
team.
Yeah, it seems like they're airing it out a lot more than
The
in
number
recent
11
memory.
seed in the field is Indiana
Which is
Wesleyan,
good.
as the Wildcats
Find
entered the
balance in that
postseason by
system.
winning the
That's the right spot
MSFA
for
Mid-East
Indiana
automatic
Wesleyan.
bid at 9-2.
Yeah.
Indiana Wesleyan
tough
averages
loss
the
against
most passing
Kaiser.
yards in the 2025 postseason
But they
field,
definitely-
throwing for 358 yards per game.
It's not the
to
running
average
team we've had the last couple of
528
years,
yards
though.
of
It
total
feels
offense
weird
per
that they're such a
contest.
passing team.
Yeah.
Our final top 12 team is Campbellsville, the number 12 seed in this
Ooh,
year's
I had
championship
Carroll
series.
there.
The Tigers are an at-large selection and come from the
Man,
Mid-South Conference.
I would have thought that
entering
last loss
postseason
would have
with an
knocked him
overall
out. I
record
thought
of
Carroll
8-2.
deserved that.
Campbellsville averages 283
Okay.
passing yards per game, led by Jet Angle, who threw
I mean, but
27
Campbellsville's still
touchdown
really
passes in the
good.
regular
Trey Bass
season,
is
Yeah.
finding
no
13
joke.
different receivers on scoring plays this year.
It makes sense. Both of their losses were like really.
Now that we know the top 12
Well, one of-
seeds,
their
let's
last
take a
one,
look at the
I
first
should
round
say.
matchups in the 2025 Football Championship Series. Our first matchup will be played in Oskaloosa, Iowa, where the
Penn.
Statesmen of William Penn are the number
Willie
13
Penn,
seed in the
13.
championship series, earning an at-large bid out of the Heart of America Athletic Conference North
That's
at
a good
10-1
squad, too.
on the year.
10-1
They'll take on
getting
the automatic qualifier
no
out of the Sooner
buys.
Athletic Conference,
Oof.
the 20th seeded Rams of Texas Wesleyan, who
Okay.
entered the postseason with an
So
overall
weird
record of
to see.
7-4.
I wasn't
Dude.
expecting to see them here.
Neither was
Until
I.
Next
literally
game in the
like 10 p.m. last
2025
night.
NAIA
gosh.
Football Championship
I
Series
texted
first
you
round
this,
is
and I'm like,
out
what
west
the
in
crap?
Helena, Montana, where
Carroll.
the 8-2 Saints
Carroll,
of
yeah.
Carroll
This-
College are the number
This has got to be a
14 seed,
flight, right?
earning an at-large berth out of the
Yeah.
Frontier West. They'll host another at-large qualifier as the 17th seeded Bobcats of St. Thomas.
So they're limiting
make the
flights
trip
by
out of
making
the
them
Sun
play each other.
Conference with a record of
Yeah.
7-3.
I don't think St. Thomas, that
The
game
Sunshine
yesterday,
State will see the next
was
game in
not-
the 2025
not what I
Football
wanted to see
Championship
out of them.
Series as the Fire of Southeastern
Fire-
earned an at-large selection.
this should be
with the
Reinhardt. It's
15th
got to be
seed
Reinhardt.
with a regular season record of 8-2. They'll host the automatic qualifier and champion of
Yep,
the
yep, yep.
Appalachian
That's
Athletic
it.
Conference.
Yeah.
The
Yep, nice and
19th
easy
seeded
and close.
Reinhardt Eagles with a record
That's going
of
to be a really
7-3.
good game, though. I think they've already played this season once.
Our final matchup in this year's Football Championship Series
so.
takes us to the middle of the country,
Maybe.
where the Cougars of the University of St. Francis,
St.
Indiana,
Francis.
are the number 16 seed, earning an at-large
They
selection
lost
out
to
of the
Campbellsville.
MSFA Midwest with an overall record of 9-2. They'll host the 18th seeded Evangel Valor, champions of
auto
the
bid.
Kessinger division, and the
So no
KCAC
Georgetown.
entering the postseason with a record
St.
of
Francis
9-2.
lost to Campbellsville. Georgetown beat Campbellsville.
Let's take one final look at the 20 teams who will
McPherson
compete
being
in the
left off
70th
of here is
annual
really
NAIA Football
the thing
Championship
that
Series.
irks
Thanks for
me,
watching and
I
good
think.
luck to our
That bothers me.
qualifiers. The battle for the Red Banner
I don't
begins
know.
now.
Like I get
Visit
I can understand the reasoning, but
NAIA.org/watch to learn how
2
you
losses versus 3 losses. They beat Evangel, they beat Southwestern, who's ranked in the ARC.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Let's go through the teams really quickly because we actually do have our guest in the waiting area here. So let's you know what? Let's go ahead and bring him in, and let me, Matt. I'm going to move you over here. Haha. And we'll
Oh, I'm on the big screen.
be on the big screen now. Let me go ahead and transition so it's not you twice.
It's like being on the Jumbotron.
And let's bring in
Hi, Mom.
Dr. Jesse Gotting here. Dr. Gotting, how's it going tonight?
Can you hear me, man?
Yes, sir. Sure can.
Awesome. Yeah.
All right. So we just got through with the selection show. And, boy, we got some questions.
Yeah.
Uh,
Everybody has questions. I am fully aware when you walk into that room and out of that room that you cannot possibly make everyone happy, and you feel it. As an athletic director, administrator who has a football program, you feel that. Boy, kids work hard, coaches work hard, everybody works hard. They put themselves in a position that they can be reviewed and possibility of going to the playoffs. And some are elated right now, and some are extremely disheartened and looking for someone to turn their wrath upon, and that's probably the committee. So
that's fair. So some opening thoughts on the field as it stands, where we've got Grandview, Kaiser, Montana Tech, Friends Benedictine, Marion Lindsay, College of Idaho Morningside, Dort Indiana Wesleyan, Campbellsville, and then our matchups of William Penn Tex West, Carroll St. Thomas, Southeastern Reinhardt, and St. Francis Evangel.
yeah, I think, and I may say this every year, I don't know, Cory, but I really do think this is a good field. Like, I don't know that we have, Saturday will prove us wrong, but I don't know that we have a blowout in the group on the first weekend, and the second weekend is going to be probably even better. I've said previously in other places that I think the top of the NAIA football is compressing, and there's a gap between the top 25, 30 teams, more so than there has been. I think you see it in how many times have we sat here and talked about the 0 and 1 loss teams in a year, and now we're talking about the 2 loss teams and the 3 loss teams and having to make decisions on them. And I think there's an automatic that's in this year that has 4 losses on the year.
Okay.
So, but I think in the end, that gives us opportunity for you to have content, and that gives an opportunity for fans to really enjoy some really good football games.
Yeah, and honestly, we had talked about it all season. We had polls where there was a huge point differential, even between teams number 23 and 24, where all year you could see this selection of 20 to 25 teams that were in there week after week, and there really wasn't a ton of movement in those teams because of that compression. Now, Coach, I sat with our folks on Discord yesterday, and we thought we solved all the world's problems, and we had until Ottawa lost by 5 touchdowns at home.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how much consternation, how much waking up in the morning and checking that score and going, oh man, that's a buy to completely out. How much consternation does that cause?
So there's really, like I've said this the last couple weeks to a couple of ADs that have checked in with me, and like this has become what Division I football is to a degree, where you are in the playoffs week 1. You mentioned Ottawa, Arizona, but you talk about consternation. What if Dort wins in overtime yesterday,
Right.
and Morningside is a 3-loss team. What if, where would we be if Cumberland or Campbellsville had beaten Georgetown yesterday?
Yeah.
And so, though there was 2 or 3 games yesterday that probably impacted the outlook of this quite a bit. Obviously, Morningside wins, Dort takes an at-large almost automatically. OUAZ loses, the Sooner Athletic Conference qualifier goes to a different team. And so, you got it all figured out. Thursday night, Saturday games are played. There's a couple wrenches thrown into the works, and it did create. Yeah, I'm sitting there last night going, "What in the world?"
So was I.
Why couldn't this just go as planned?
So was I. Matt can vouch. I texted him and went, Ottawa of Arizona is really screwing up my plans.
It's true. Yeah.
Matt, hit that next question.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I had it pulled up. I lost it. So, looking at Campbellsville specifically, and earning a bye after the loss, especially to Georgetown, who obviously did not make the field. What was kind of the tipping point compared to like a Carroll in that situation?
Committee kind of the determination in that, of course, you're looking at. I will tell you this, guys. We did this a little bit differently this year because there was nothing tied to ratings. That was our first year to do that, and it was the first time that we had seeded the whole thing 1 to 20. If you remember in the past, the top 6 were protected.
Mm-hmm.
Campbellsville was 3rd in their arc. Carroll was 5th in their arc. Campbellsville they were both 2-loss teams.
Mm-hmm.
Campbellsville, if I remember right, was a little bit higher, Massey and FPI, if I remember correctly. I'm sorry, guys, I don't have that in front of me anymore.
No, you're good.
You're all good.
So when you looked at the primary indicators, the criteria for those 2 teams, Campbellsville came out on top. Campbellsville's, they had that loss to Georgetown, who was ranked in the arc. They also had 2 wins over teams that were in arcs. They had I think the early season win over St. Francis, and then they had beat Lindsay.
Mm-hmm.
And Carroll, I think, was 1 and 2 in teams ranked in the arcs. So that was some of the determination there.
For sure, yeah.
So we had looked at Georgetown, and especially with the win over a common opponent, especially when you stack them up against St. Francis, that common opponent being Campbellsville. And I thought that might have been a tipping point for y'all to put Georgetown in. Obviously, like you said earlier, if Georgetown doesn't win that game, if Jet Engel runs that 2-point conversion in and takes it to overtime and Campbellsville wins, we don't have this conversation. But with a Georgetown losing to a Bethel, where was the tipping point? Do you borrow that phrase again on Georgetown?
Another team that's on the east that's in that arc is St. Thomas. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but did St. Thomas have a win?
They squeaked it out against a 500 team.
Over over Georgetown, though, earlier in the year.
Yes, they did.
Yeah. So,
Okay. I see where you're going
in
with
looking
that.
at that, there was a head-to-head criteria there, and Georgetown had that win over St. Thomas, or St. Thomas had the win over Georgetown. It was a home win for St. Thomas, but nonetheless, in a head-to-head, that's probably the difference there.
Okay. I see what you're saying there. A couple other teams that we'll bring up because I know people are gonna want to know here. We did not project Montana Western in, but we thought Montana Western had an excellent case after their 3 losses came to teams that made the playoffs, and 2 out of the 3 that won their division.
Yeah, man, you're right. I can't make everybody happy on this one.
Yeah.
But no, you're correct. So this is where you look at a McPherson team, very good. Should they have been in? Gosh, you could certainly argue that they should have. Montana Western, should they have been in? You could certainly argue that they should have. You can also argue that when you look at Montana Western, well, Carroll had 3 chances and they got one of them.
Yeah.
You know, College of Idaho had 3 chances and they got 2 of them. Montana Tech got all 3 of them. As far as winning in the arc, Montana Western went 0-3 in that, and this gets back to kind of when do the playoffs begin, correct? And in certain sense, that was their playoffs. And if you look at the rest of that conference in Carroll and Montana Tech and College of Idaho, they were capable of at least getting 1 out of the 3.
Then I guess kind of just to wrap things up, our debate last night as we deliberated out and tried to figure it out was the weighting of a signature win versus the weight of a bad loss.
So we had this discussion on Thursday in a preliminary meeting for the National Selection Committee. And we had to remind ourselves that, unless we stick it in there into the criteria, you can look at the primary, the secondary, and the other criteria that would be considered, and nowhere in there does it say best win, worst loss. That's a very truly subjective type thing, right?
Yeah.
What is a best win? What is a worst loss? And so in order to try and stay a little bit more objective, I don't think we have that in there, and probably for good reason.
So to kind of refine that then, if we define the terms as an arc win versus a non-arc loss.
Yeah, we take that into consideration.
Are those weighted equally with each other, or
in this? I mean, well, you have an arc. We do, one of the criteria is like wins within the arc, right? So obviously the wins within the arc have a little bit better than losses that are against unranked teams. However, all of the criteria in the primary, secondary is a piece of the puzzle. It is not the entire puzzle. So you had a couple teams that lost against unranked ARC teams. That becomes a piece of the puzzle that we have to weigh against all the other pieces of the puzzle and see how to fit.
And honestly, Coach, just looking at it, the situation was a lot harder this year, just due to the fact that you're moving the coaches' rating, coaches' ranking, coaches' poll, whatever terminology you want to use for it. I don't care. It's the thing that comes out on Monday afternoon. Moving that from a primary criteria to a secondary criteria where it's not the be-all, end-all, that's That does
No,
not make life hard easy.
actually, we moved it out of
Oh,
the criteria.
okay.
We do not even look at the coaches poll at all.
Even harder then.
This year, we put in the FPI, the Football Performance Index, and then we also went to the Massey rating as two analytics to look at, and that's in conjunction with overall winning percentage, record, and rank and arc as primary criteria. So it was, I will say, as the chair, I will say that it was a very different process this year.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have that to look at. You were looking at different criteria than you had in the past. It was the first time where if you were ranked in the ARC, we had 32 teams that we could have been considering. In the past, you had to be ranked in the top 25 in order to be considered for an at-large. So there was kind of, for me, kind of a, oh my gosh, we're looking at a whole lot more teams than we did in the past when we first started the list, and looking at 19. Now, all of our automatics had a rank in the ARC somewhere this year, and that hasn't been necessarily the case in the past. So that was a positive, but that leaves 19 other teams to be considered.
Yeah. And yeah, that just makes it so much harder on that. But I will say it was nice to have, the Massey where we could look at it, the FPI where we could look at it and we could judge. And honestly, those were up as we deliberated last night. Obviously, we didn't have the updated Massey to be able to play with, and the updated FPI. Obviously, we just sort of had to use our imaginations a little bit. But I'm very grateful for the transparency that's emerged in the use of those two metrics, and I do think that other than the nits, I would pick on Georgetown and McPherson in there. I do think those were St. Francis and St. Thomas were both to us our first four out, so it's not like these are out of left field. So thank you so much for chairing the committee. That is not that's not an easy task, and it's a lot of time. And as I was sitting in church this morning, looking at my watch, going, committee's meeting. It's time away from your family that you've got to be in those committee meetings and missing time out there. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for coming on with us. The fact that you choose to do this repeatedly,
I appreciate it, Cory. You guys, I know you'd like to get much deeper into what in the world were you guys thinking, but I do appreciate the kindness, and I do appreciate the opportunity to represent the entire committee. And
I hope to see you in Fort Worth, as I'm sure you'll make the trip over from good old Waxahachie.
Absolutely.
All right, Coach. Have a good night now.
Take care.
Take it easy.
Dr. Jesse Gotting from the selection committee. See if I can pull this back to full screen. All right. That was enlightening. Just looking at the intra arc stuff. So Henchman, Matt, Roger, Zach, when you listen to this, let's remember this for next year, that it's they focus this year on intra arc rankings a whole lot more than the things that we were focusing on, which is where our projection went a little sideways. Let's take a look. Now, the top 12 teams, Brett brings up a question. We'll catch it a little bit later. Nick, St. Francis did make it. Derek Smith, Kansas Wesleyan loss did screw Mac. If not for that loss, they make it. Let's see. I think, Henchman, if you sent SEU to Carroll, I think it would be better for SEU Reinhardt to have that matchup due to the seeding. Even though they did play in the regular season, they don't care as much if you played in the regular season as if you're in the same conference. I mean, that was a hard one, and honestly, to me, like I said to Dr. Godding, the loss, the Ottawa loss, really forced some rejiggering to happen, even after we went through our stuff over the on Discord there. So let's talk about these teams, break them down. Grandview has been, other than a couple of games, just about every bit what we thought they would be, Matt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's been, I mean, you lose your head coach before the season, and you just keep on ticking. Defensive SP plus at number 3, overall SP plus number 4. Look, is Jackson Waring probably going to be player of the year? Yeah, because he's still in there and he won it last year.
Mm-hmm.
To me, those aren't player of the year numbers yet. Those aren't quite what he was doing last year. Now, granted, last year in the playoffs, he was an absolute wrecking ball.
He went nuclear. Yeah.
So you could see that again. But there's some other guys out there that I go, you might want to take a peek. Moving on, Kaiser. Look, getting Shea Spencer back, absolutely massive. Having Jaden Miller has taken over. Kaiser has typically been a 2-back team. This year, going with just basically a feature back in Jaden Miller, that's been really good. Their defense has been excellent. Up until yesterday, where they allowed 21 points to Warner, but you could see they were looking ahead to the playoffs. As much as I hate to say that, Matt, any thoughts on the Seahawks trying to run it back?
No, nothing out of left field anyways. Certainly was a team I had my doubts about at the beginning of the year, but they've gotten me to shut up. They're very, very good. I would not be surprised if they make a run. I imagine their hair's a bit on fire, especially with how the national championship game went last year. I am very certain they are motivated to get a second crack at it.
Team that I am really interested to see how they do in the playoffs, simply because they've played with their hair on fire all year, like you've said, is Montana Tech.
Yeah.
What an incredible offense that they've put together. Levi Torgerson has been incredible, both offensively, has been great with special teams. They've had a top 10 defense. And anytime you've got a quarterback that's chunking 10.5 yards an attempt, you're moving the ball.
Yeah. This team's very fun. They're going to be very fun in the playoffs. Like you said, they play with their hair on fire, and that's what shines through with this team. It feels like their motor is incredibly high, and that will take you very far places if you've been playing as well as they have been all season.
And this will make Henchman very happy. Those are player of the year numbers. 1 interception?
Yeah.
That's stupid. Talk about player of the year, though. Friends and Cavante Baker has now, please discount the fact that he has less than 500 yards passing. My guy has 26 touchdowns on the ground, 32 total touchdowns accounted for, 18.9 yards per attempt because he's just chonking it whenever he has to throw the ball. They're the second best offense by SP+. They're the best offense in the nation by scoring. and you've got a couple of running backs in Nick Cordova and a Darian Sykes that are elite, and then there's about a half dozen after them that are just chomping at the bit, waiting their turn to get the football.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, we haven't really talked about their defense a lot this season, but they've been stout for a good chunk of the year. Curious to see how they match up against some of these higher-powered offenses in the postseason. I think that's going to be the biggest question mark with this team, but with the rate they've been putting up points against everybody they've played, it's hard to imagine many teams in the country are going to be able to keep up with that.
Yeah, Benedictine, again, the offense here is where it's at. Number one offense by SP Plus, and there's no question about why. Xavier Gorgie has been excellent, shouldering the load. We thought it would be a two-horse race with him and Witherspoon. He has shouldered the load. I believe Witherspoon's been hurt. Titan Osborne has been incredible, a guy that we didn't really know coming into the season. We thought there would be other receivers that they would feature. Osborne has been excellent. Jackson Dooley with almost 3,000 passing yards that's another guy there. That's going to be at least a division player of the year, which will put you in the race there.
Yep, absolutely.
And I don't know about that defensive SP Plus being 25. That defense has felt better than that.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Coming up next, Marion. Overall SP Plus 13th, 12th, and 24th on the metrics there. But you when you talk about Marion, you've got to talk about Keegan LaBelle. 1,158 yards, 21 touchdowns. Tristan Polk has been excellent, 17 touchdowns, 2 picks. Their defense has been good enough, and that's not a slam. That's just how it's been. You've played St. Francis, you've played Indiana Wesleyan, you've beaten them both. And the only way you keep those two teams down is having a good defense. And you look at those three names in Street, Houseman, and Carrington, you're talking about 15 pass breakups between those three and 8 interceptions, 7 of them from Carrington. That's a defense you don't want to be matched up against, even if it is the 24th ranked defense.
Yeah, it's really interesting that a lot of these top teams have defenses in that just outside of elite range by the metrics. Could make some really interesting emphasis on the offensive side of the ball this postseason.
The SP Plus darling up next, Lindsey Wilson, number 1 overall by SP Plus ranking, 5th offense, 8th defense. Devontae Saunders, he will have a 1,500-yard rushing season once he gets done with the playoffs. Because, that's 36 yards. He'll get that. Kaya Sherrard has been excellent since game 1, our week 1 offensive player of the week. Tate Rice has been excellent, 65% completion percentage, 24-4 touchdown to interception ratio, and you can't ever talk about Lindsey Wilson and leave out the defense. That defense has been the calling card for that Lindsey Wilson team since year 1.
Yeah, it's they've looked really strong this season. Another team we weren't sure about when we initially started these conversations, and they told Texas Wesleyan to get lost, and then that was that, and they started rolling. So, they've looked really good this year. I've been super impressed by them. This might be getting back to the Blue Raiders of old.
Yep.
And by old, I mean
2020,
4 or 5 years ago.
Yep, 2020, and that COVID spring game in West Monroe, Louisiana. Rainy game where Cam came out to play against Northwestern. That was such a fun game to watch. Up next, College of Idaho, the Yotes have not had a great offense, but that defense has been absolutely elite. And you can't discount Caden Young at quarterback. That's 550 yards on the ground, plus 1,750 through the air. that College of Idaho team has been a tough game all season long, and they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs.
Yeah. Defense wins championships. This might be our best case. Seeing if that holds true, because I feel like this is the first team where, it's a lot more defensive centric than the offensive side of the ball. But they've been stout, man. It's pulled them out of a lot of tight games. They were kind of, alongside Montana Tech, one of the teams to avoid a lot of the frontier chaos we talk about. It's kind of interesting. We had two teams that felt, for the most part, they were cut above that, when usually it's just one and or none of them. So,
Right.
yeah, really good showing for them throughout the regular season. And yeah, that defense is going to be really fun to watch in the postseason.
One that's going to be playing mad is going to be Morningside. 6th overall
Yeah.
offense, 17th defense. This is a team that knows how to win championships. You've got a quarterback who, when he is on, is bar none probably one of the top 3 quarterbacks, and he might not be number 2 or 3.
Yeah.
His problem, however, sometimes he gets a little turnover happy.
Yeah, but I think that's bound to happen sometimes when you air it out as much as Morningside likes to. But also, not to mention, it's actually a pretty well-rounded effort for them this year. Drew Sallin, I feel like, is going to be the real star of this team if they're to make a deep run. I watched him when he played us at Wesleyan this year. He is an incredible athlete. And I don't know. I just feel like he'd be due for some elite performances down the stretch here.
They've had a good defense this year, too, and that's been I think their defense is a little slept on, but they really have had a good defensive effort. We talked about before the selection show, we talked a lot about Dort, so I'll keep this a little short, but this is a team, SP Plus ranked defense number 2 overall by SP Plus as of last week. 8. All the SP Plus numbers are coming into the week and don't include yesterday's action. But still a really good team. Noah Strickfaden has taken over at quarterback. We started out with Colson Cruz, but Strickfaden has taken over. They've got some incredible rushing attack, but that defense is stifling. And Matt, if we know one thing about Dort's defense, it's going to be, how do I put this? Insultingly physical. It is going to make you yell at your TV for the refs to throw hankies that don't exist.
They are physical, and I know I kind of used this to describe what Montana Tech earlier, but they're a super high motor team. The defense specifically really gets after it. Not necessarily world beaters in terms of what they're capable of, but they keep coming at you. And that's why I think their defense is so successful. Obviously, not to discredit the talent on that team, because their defense is obviously still extremely talented, but it definitely benefits from that mentality that they have coached into them.
Yep, absolutely. A phenomenal squad. Indiana Wesleyan up next. Anthony Cheeseborough, I feel like we've called his name for 8 years now, but my guy has been an absolute monster in the trenches. But really the big upside for IWU has been the offense. Arjun Lothi has been an incredible passer. Won a player of the week one week for us when he threw 7 touchdowns in one game. This is not the Indiana Wesleyan of 4 years ago, where it's move them forward with a huge O-line and get a great push for the running back. This is an air it out squad.
It's like you said, it's weird to just see how they're operating in that sense this year, but it has clearly worked. Loath has been incredible this entire season, putting up, 3,700 yards?
Yep.
38 touchdowns, just absolutely insane numbers.
That's probably your player of the year out of the mid-states, mid-east.
You'd think so.
We can sort of figure this out now that we're looking at these as these playoff teams. And
for sure.
Up next, Campbellsville. We talked about Devontae Saunders, for Lindsey Wilson being a really, really, really good back, almost 1,500 yards. Trey Bass, I do not envy the Mid-South coaches having to choose between Bass and Saunders for Player of the Year because that's just incredible. And, man, Matt, I will say, and I have told both coaches this, Phil Kleckler owes Coach Mathis and Coach Pear and Beers to get that auto bid, because Campbellsville had it wrapped up going into the last week, and they just couldn't get that 2-point conversion. It was like it was happening in slow motion. Jet Engel trying to throw the ball, and he misfired. It had an open running lane, and I was internally screaming, and I'm not even a Campbellsville fan.
Yeah, it's the games they've lost this year have been pretty dramatic, honestly. But I still think that you're able to go into the playoffs with your head held high for the most part, especially when you have a guy like Trey Bass, who will definitely rise to the occasion of the playoffs. He's one of the people I'm super excited to see in a postseason setting, because it's very obvious he's built for moments like that. So, yeah, all eyes are going to be on this Campbellsville team for me.
Then our first 4 games, William Penn, Texas Wesleyan, had to cut them off here. Let me pull the stats here. We talk about William Penn. They are led by Destin Loring. That is 1,574 yards rushing, 25 touchdowns, 208 yards receiving, and another score. But you've got an almost 1,000-yard receiver in Amir Everett, because Sterling Ramsey has thrown for 2,300 yards through the air. This is a William Penn team you don't want to come in contact with.
Yeah, they're really scary right now, and I feel like people kind of wrote them off after their loss against Grandview, which, like, probably shouldn't have done that because they've looked really good the rest of the way. Just kind of been creeping back up these standings, being a pretty obvious at-large bid, to be completely frank with you. And I'm curious to see how the matchup against Texas Wesleyan goes. I don't know if Texas Wesleyan was entirely prepared to be in this situation, which is also kind of why I'm thinking that. Coach Speak and all that stuff will tell you the guys were ready to go, but I bet you there's some surprise, at least internally. So
that is, look, we are in the NAIA. This is God's favorite branch of sports. This is grace for Texas Wesleyan getting put in. It is unmerited favor after they lost to Ottawa of Arizona. Sir Hill, excellent at the linebacker position, 64 tackles, 6 tackles for loss. Jordan Crawford along the D-line, 16.5 tackles for loss. That'll get it done. But what you got to worry about for Texas Wesleyan is, are you going to be able to score and also stop William Penn? That's going to be that'll be a toughie.
Yeah.
Next up, I don't want to say the game I'm looking forward to most, because there's 2 more games and I might change my mind, but Carroll St. Thomas is going to be an absolute doozy, because these are 2 teams that just, oh man, I lost my dingle hopper. There it goes.
Okay. I'm sorry
technological difficulties there for a second. Carroll has an excellent defense. So does St. Thomas. These 2 teams are kind of cut from the same cloth in terms of what they want to do identity-wise on offense and defense. No, that's Southeastern. See, if I don't have these stats in front of me, I'm nothing. Keely Watson, 2,400 yards, 25 touchdowns. David Hayes, 701 yards receiving. They don't run the ball as well as they did when they had Rontavious Farmer, but you cannot give it up. And that is a South Florida quick defense. But are they going to be able to overcome the beef of Carroll on both sides of the ball?
Yeah, it's I don't know, because Carroll just has looked so good for most of the season, but they've had these weird steps where they're kind of in a scrap against Eastern Oregon. They had that scare against Southern Oregon. Like, there are teams they will play in the playoff that are better than either of them, and you need to be able to respond. Granted, they have so far when faced with those challenges, but St. Thomas certainly a talented enough team that could take advantage of that. Really interested to see the St. Thomas offense go against the defense of Carroll.
Yeah, and how do you turn it around for St. Thomas? Because I'm going to be honest, that defense has not been what I wanted to see at times for St. Thomas. I mean, they gave up, what was it, like 40 points to Florida Memorial, which Florida Memorial is a really good squad, but they're very inconsistent, and they're a 500 team. And so I'm very interested. This is a very intriguing matchup. Southeastern Reinhardt up next. And I know we talk about Southeastern having a really good season, and they have an excellent defense. I don't know that I'd want to play Reinhardt right now. They feel really, really good about
They feel
who
red
are.
hot. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, Taylor Jackson on the year, 1,429 yards passing, 14 touchdowns, 11 picks. That might be a problem, but on the other side for Southeastern, you've got Nate Michael, who's got 11 touchdowns and 11 picks. So it might even itself out. Jacques Colbert, 1,077 yards rushing, 9 touchdowns for Reinhardt. This one's going to come down to who can stop the other. And right now, Reinhardt, having lost to Southeastern earlier in the year, gets to see what they didn't do well and how they might be able to attack the Southeastern team. This one, to me, is scary for Southeastern, that you're going to have to face them again, and they're surging.
Yeah. And Southeastern, they've won the games that they've had to this year, but this Reinhardt team just feels like such a different challenge, kind of coming out of left field. I don't know, because Reinhardt's usually been here, but this isn't the Reinhardt teams of old where like you kind of expect this. They've definitely had to play into this spot. So I don't know. I'm intrigued by the fact we've also seen this matchup before.
Yeah.
So there's something to that.
And then the last matchup, St. Francis Evangel. I have a hard time getting enthused over St. Francis, mostly over who they've played and how they played them. But you're here now, and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Evangel, however, has a really good squad with Reed Potts on offense at quarterback, 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. You've got Brock Lau that you're throwing to 728 receiving yards. Eric Williams II, 935 rushing yards, 13 touchdowns. This is going to be a game for St. Francis that's kind of a la Marion in how they like to play. Are you going to be able to take some of those lessons learned from Marion and apply them positively to Evangel?
Yeah, it's going to be a really intriguing matchup between these teams. Especially, I'm just super curious to see Evangel in this postseason situation because they are, I'm sold on them being a very good team, but they've also just had some really slow in the mud type of matchups, and I'm curious how that translates, especially against a team like St. Francis. You have Kolko airing it out, being a main component of them being able to succeed in moving the ball. So, interesting style clash there.
All right, let's take a quick break here real quick. We'll be back with our patrons and some final thoughts here. Right now, we're going to hear a word from our friends at AdCraft.
So you want to create and sell custom merch for your team or business. That's exciting, but where do you begin? How much inventory should you order? How do you distribute orders? AdCraft has your answers. Streamline the way you offer custom merch by utilizing our risk-free web store service. We ship directly to each customer, and we have the fastest turnaround in the game. Raise funds for your team or get merch to your employees and patrons. Contact AdCraft today, and let's bring your merch to life.
and they are fantastic at doing that. They are working with us again this year. We are going to be hosting a web store, getting stuff, hopefully in time for Christmas, working up against the clock there to get that done. So that will be up. Look for that either this week or next to see a web store from us, get some NAIA product stuff in time for Christmas. AdCraft has been an incredible partner for us. You should check them out for your web store needs there. They are NAIA, born bred. They know your world, and they take the pressure off of you. You know, kind of final thoughts-wise, other than my two nits to pick, like I told Dr. Gotting, I do think that this was a decently good field. You know, given the play this year, and how the committee had to decide things, it was difficult. They did a good job with what they had, though, and it was an interesting exercise for them to do, especially without the backing of the coaches poll.
Yeah, it's really interesting to be able. I don't know. I feel like that's just a more objective look at it, because if you kind of are analyzing, what a computer is feeding you versus, the politicking of a coach's poll in some capacity, whether or not that's, actually happening, I don't know. I don't know what happens when they make those coaches polls, but like there's a more human element to it. So therefore there's going to be more emotion involved, and like not quite as black and white as comparing straight ARC ratings, straight FPI, looking at all of these metrics and equations and ways that we can weigh it in an unbiased way, or as unbiased as we can get it.
Yeah. So thank you so much to everyone who helped us this year, and I especially want to say thank you to those who are in our Discord. I mean, if you want to get into our Discord, you don't have to be a patron, but all of our patrons do get access to the Discord. So thank you to our patrons. I would definitely want to give a absolutely special thank you to Zach Lance. Zach, throughout the last few weeks, has been incredible, has been my brain for bracketology reasons, has been incredible at breaking it down, and getting us in a position to where we felt very confident about what we were going into the selection show seeing, and maybe we'll see. We might bring him on next year as our bracketology expert if he continues to look at this. He's definitely someone who has an eye for it. So thank you so much to Zach for putting in the effort there. If you want to be part of our Patreon and get behind-the-scenes stuff, like we live streamed for our patrons for, let's see, we started at like 11:45 a.m. Eastern time, and I think I cut the stream off at like 6-ish. So like 6 hours of watching NAIA football, talking about it, getting into the meat of it, especially as the playoffs appeared. Something that our patrons get. Our patrons get a breakdown of all of our polls. They don't see who specifically are our poll voters, but they can track by number which pollster, and they get to see that. They also get first peek at the viewing guides each week, which will be much easier now that Urban Edge has the rest of the games for the rest of the season. And we do our best to give extra value to our patrons. It's $1 a month to become a patron, and it helps us immensely. Patreon.com/NAIAFBall. And I think I'm going to read them backwards because we have two new ones in Javon Holmes and Donald Lamb.
There you go.
Who have joined us. Thanks, gentlemen. And so our patrons are Javon Holmes, Donald Lamb, Swede Nation, Coke and Nicholas, Joey Breckel, Christopher Zwiener, Derek Lowers, Carol C. Suggs, Casey Willison, the Bracketology King, Zach Lance, Sean Chamberlain, Todd Nix, Jason Crawford, Nathan Moore, Tim Burrow, Julie Lout, Stephen Cutler, Nate Soapbeer, Julianne Shager, Brian Shake, Steve Speakman, Justin Hoffman, Tyler Pierce, Kyle Gregory, Marty Seabolt, Ace Swellen, Fred Christensen, Jeremy Vobble, Roger Meyer, and DSU Cone. Well, I cannot wait for Saturday. I don't know that any of these games are going to be blowouts, like Dr. Godding said.
No, yeah.
But there are going to be some that are some really hard-fought, tooth and nail battles.
It's going to be. I'm super pumped. I'm just glad we're here. There's no more theorizing.
It has become sight at this point, and we will be back next Monday with another edition of the NAIF Ball live show. I told Brett I would hit travel, and I didn't. Okay. Thank you for bringing that back up. Okay, so the way this will probably work, you've got 4 teams coming from your 4 games, which will make your field of 16. Of that, your top 8 teams are going to probably be getting home games, and your bottom 8 will probably be traveling. Now, does that mean that team number 8, which is, who's number 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Does that mean College of Idaho is guaranteed a game at home? No. Because we have seen it to where they will twiddle around with the numbers as they need to, because the NAIA at its core is going to make sure that it limits flights as much as possible. It's a max of 2, and if they can limit it to under that, they will. They'll try to stay with the seating as much as possible. They gave us the seatings this year. 2 years ago, they didn't give us the seatings, and we just sort of had to guess. They published the seeds this year, which is fantastic. But they're going to try to stay with the seating, but if they can make a tweak for travel, they will. And so I would think that Morningside would be at home and Dordt on the road for that second round, but we can't say for sure until we know who's coming out of those first 4 games. So thank you for bringing that back up, Brett. Appreciate that. That is a really, really good point. And it's just there's some great things about being in the NAI. There's some not sometimes as great things, and having to be beholden to that 800-mile rule is sometimes one of those things. And sometimes you can talk yourself into a matchup if you will volunteer to bus, even if you're over 800 miles. So there is some goings on there. We'll try. We're going to do the same thing on our Discord next Saturday as the games wind down, as those first 4 wind down. We'll get together. We'll take a look at them, and we'll see if we can prognosticate where they're going based on mileages. Thanks so much to Roger Meyer, who is our mileage expert. Also, Zach has helped in that in years past. Used his map from last year to help kind of guide our stuff yesterday. But yeah, travel is a huge prerogative for the NAIA. Matt, any thoughts as we get ready to sign out?
Playoffs? What you talk about?
It's the most
Playoffs.
wonderful time of the year. It might be middle of November, and yes, I am sitting with the fan going full speed in basketball shorts right now. It'll get cold. It'll get cold. And it'll really feel like football. But I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time.
All right. Thanks for joining us tonight on the NAIF Ball Live Bracket Reveal Show. And we will see y'all on the Twitter feed.